By 1890, the Boston Sunday Traveler sent a reporter out to the Rockport quarries, and he says, in the Rockport quarries, there's a thing of great injustice taking place. These quarries that were worked by good American men, who ate good American meals, who bought food that we know what it looks like, their jobs are being taken over by this immigrant group of Finns, who don't speak English, who keep to themselves. Right? Photographs in the article. So every family, every group has one blonde-haired girl about 12 years old who speaks English. And she was named Mary Field. And Mary's there explaining and talking what life is like. When the Finns arrive, I read recently Naomi Baxter's book, Looking Down from the Stars. And I only read the first 20 pages because it's a slog to read through it. But at the beginning, she's talking about a girl, Mary, on the train coming from Boston to Gloucester. And she's sitting down, and she's got 3 layers of coats. She's got every conceivable amount of clothing on that you could think of. She really needs to go to the bathroom, but she doesn't want to get up. She doesn't want to say anything. She doesn't want to get up because she doesn't want anybody to notice. So they slide in, and there are various ways as to how they slide into Cape Ann. This morning I took a nap, and I was thinking, you know, isn't it great to be sitting here and imagine Finns coming. A lot of the Finns came into Montreal and worked their way down the coast to get here. So let's leave aside the train, let's leave aside the carriage. Let's take those Finns to walk to Brisk Island, Brisk Island as we know it, and take a ferry from there across to Ferry Street, and then walk from there up to Lanesville. So this pattern of movement, physical movement, is very acute and important. Well, this is kind of nice. This is the existing. This house is over in Rockport. The hedges in front of it. It was a thin stack from bottom to top. Okay. You could show anything could show up. Be given a cotton pallet in the corner for one night. When they went to the quarry, if they didn't have a union card, they were kind of said, "Go on." And that is in the picture. 1890. So it kind of shows the sequence of when they might have small cottages. Typically, the small buildings had just as many people in it as and the reporter was aghast that these Finns they didn't have closets, they had all their clothes hung by lines, they'd be up for the day, they'd be down for the night. 1890. 1895, the Fishermen's Institute is opened in Gloucester. This was a building where the men who'd been out at sea could come in, kind of de-res and behave themselves on shore. That was the polite way of saying, you know, they were a little bit rambunctious. And the minister, who was the great bellwether of tending for the fishermen, in the opening of this building, gives a keynote. And his keynote is, "Do Finns have feelings?" And he says, we often hear this in Gloucester. Do Finns feel? You know, it said, the only good Finn is a dead Finn. It takes 6 Finns to make a dog, etc. And his editorial is to say, stop. You've got to respect what this culture is. So we start to get an inkling of Gloucester people and Cape Ann people. They get a sense of this community, which is so bright, so well able to take care of themselves in so many ways, needs to be respected. Okay. 1892. So we've got 1886. 1892, there's a second strike. And more Finns come in. And just like in 1886, they're brought in as strike breakers. And they don't really speak English, and they don't understand what's really happening. And this now is the crux. In 1899, what is the largest and most significant strike on Cape occurs. And in May, all of the 150 Finnish workers from Bayview walk along the main road, down in through behind Leather Street, and follow the railroad tracks over Pigeon Cove, follow the road down, and walk into the Rockport Quarry. That sounds simple. So how many of you have walked under the Keystone Bridge in Rockport? So you know there's a great, in the middle, echo sound. Well, so this is from inside the quarry looking out. The dynamic is the Finns are going to walk into the quarry, underneath, coming down Granite Street, and walk into the quarry. Nobody ever did that. Going under the bridge was all about what was going out, and that was granite that had been weighed, tagged, and identified as to where it was going to go. So when they got on the wharf, they would know how to load it. If you were a quarry worker in the Rockport Granite Company, you came down this cascade of ladders to go into the tools to work. Nobody walked in underneath, which we all do. Except I did. Parenthetically, the first time I wanted to see Flatledge Quarry, I had no idea how to get there. I parked up on King Street, and I walked down, and I went in the road to the water pumping station, and I basically fell down about 45 feet of street. Because I figured that's when I get in. Then I got in and I said, oh, I can come in this way. So, Finns at that moment described that they were hooting and hollering in English at the Rockport quarry workers. This is what it sounded like. Maybe. Let's go back.
Brothers, lay down your tools and join us. Lay down your tools and join us, brothers.
That was a small crowd of one. Try this, imagine. You're all Rockport Granite Company quarry workers. You spend your day at 6, you come down the ladder at 6 o'clock when the whistle blows, you've got your tool in hand, ready. Right? At the end of the day, you climb back out the ladder and you go home. All of a sudden, you're there at work, and it's mid-morning, and 150 Finns with canes, with walking sticks, are beating the ground at that percussive moment, and in English, saying, brothers, lay down your tools. So you've got this incredible shot. They walk in and 200 of them, everyone in the quarry lays down their tools. And as a group, they go back out under the bridge, up, and walk back to Bayview to begin a series of meetings of how the strike was going to take place. I kind of knew that the last time I was here. When I got to this moment, I did it like this to emulate that. But there's a really significant detail. So this is the account where they've all gone back to Lanesville. They meet at the skating rink, the roller skating rink. Which was it? Roller skating rink? Oh, okay. Yeah. Lots of food. They're all in agreement. It gets testy in that they march back. The dynamic here is that they come back to Rockport as a group. They end up down on Granite Pier. There are about 300 to 400 of these workers all together contesting with the Rockport Granite Company. During the strike itself, the Granite Company brings Italians in from Boston. They spend one day working, and they say, we didn't know that we were being brought in as strike breakers. We're going back to Boston. At that point, the Rockport Granite Company brings in 150 Italians from New York who really didn't care about Cape Ann at all. They build shanties for them in Lanesville. whole series of events where the Finns go up, they're throwing rocks, they're throwing eggs. Shots are almost fired, shots are not fired. The walking stick. If there's a major event with danger, and I don't want to be seen, I stay back. If I'm a Finn, and I've got a purpose to this action, and I want me to be seen, I want my name to be known and written down, I take the lead. So we'll see this man with his hat in the next picture. The photographs, these three photographs that I'm showing you, were taken by the Rockport Granite Company's treasurer, Louis Rogers. He had the job. Remember, these are Boston people, right? I mean, it's like they know what was going on. So, okay, you know, they kind of know maybe something was up in 86 and 92, and they're kind of loaded to bear. You take names. You, Louis, at the camera, you take the pictures. When all was said and done, the Boston Globe offered them Louis $1,000 for one photograph. I think it was 1899. And he was scared to do that. Because what happens is these men get to the quarry. So this is, they've come down, Granite, coming down toward Granite Pier. This is the top, the east wharf at Granite Pier. These are the houses you can still see up in Granite Street. We don't see the leader here, but we see him here. Look at the hat. Look at the hat. So you've got 400 men with canes on Granite Pier, facing off against half a dozen of the Rockport Granite Company. Now, Charles Rogers pulls out a gun. He doesn't shoot it, but he's threatening to shoot it. And the conversation that takes place, basically the Finns say, "Why are you pulling out a gun on us?" And Rogers said, "Why are you all carrying sticks?" And the Finn says, "Every gentleman carries a walking cane." I don't know if he said it in English or not. So, with all of this, but what the sticks came in handy for was, while all of this is going on, there were a couple of teamsters trying to load a wagon with granite to go up around Granite Pier, and they simply went up and start whacking the horses and whacking the guy, and all of this takes place. After the fact, it's recounted in Baker. They say, you know, when Charles Rogers was there, he was a pain in the butt. And they say, yeah, he almost got pushed into the water, and they said, it would be so much easier if he had been pushed into the water. So, you get past the event. Now, part of my research has been to spend a lot of time at Harvard at the business school. This is, I should parenthetically add here that Sandy is very kindly filming this. There are many people who couldn't be here today. I got a great email from Jeannie French Hancock saying, I love your work, can't be there. Is there any way I'm going to be able to see this? This will all be pared down in a way so it'll be able to be shared online. Also, because I think this particular crux that we're moving toward with English is an important part of Finnish heritage, so Cape Ann Finns will have it, the museums will have it. This is from Harvard. In 1960 or so, when Barbara Urkel is doing this amazing work of Hammers on Stone, she spends a little bit of time on the strike, but she doesn't name any names. It's 1960, think of it, 70 years before. How do the families fit? How do they feel? I first, in 2015, came across this, and I posted online. So I can name names as to what took place. Does anybody object? I think I put it in all pictures of Lanesville. People said, no, go ahead. So I know you may not be able to see this, but this is a report from the Rockport Granite Company of who went where when. Okay? Who were the leaders? Matt Jacobson, Oscar Isaacson, John Keddison, Frank Hendrickson, Henry Hendrickson, Matt Madison II, and Victor Biglink. You know, I thought a lot about that name, Biglink. I mean, there has to be a different real name there. Does anybody know anybody named Biglink? No, missing link, but this is important that they're naming these people. Because the day after the strike ends, as it's ending, the Rockport Granite Company sends police with translators to all the named Finns houses to arrest them. And they arrive, and the wife says, and they go to the motion. And some of the motions they find things, and they do the translation, and they go. Some of the men run away. In many of the motions they go to, the men have already fled into Dogtown, and they hide out in Dogtown for several days. In that sense, Dogtown becomes a sanctuary city for a group of immigrants. It's very interesting. No comments. And here's the deal. So, 1886, no English really, strike bands. 1892, you're all strike ready to come speak English. The whole crux around 1899 is Finns to pay company in their own coin. So somewhere between 1892 and 1899, a group of Finns set out to learn English, a small group, so that when the strike came, they could speak to the other nationalities, translate easily with other nationalities. And how are they going to pay the employers back in coins? Well, it was a federal statute that as a business, you could not import immigrants and use them as strike breakers. And 25 Finns say, we're ready to go to court and testify and pay the employer back in court. I haven't been able to determine whether that actually, beyond the motions, whether that took place. But it was their courage to stand in that way and to lead the strike. Okay? And to now, okay, you're in Boston, you're a smart businessman. To say, oh, no. A couple of the Finns in 1892 told them to come over. Brothers, come work in the quarries. We never brought anybody over under any kind of false pretenses. That was spin control. So now we get 1899. The strike is complete. The strikers win their truces. Finns are very bright. It's 1902. And what happens in 1902 is this amazing moment. The Finns go to the Gloucester School Board and say, we all want to learn English. We need your help. We'll give you, they had just finished building Wayno Hall. And they say, we will give you a Wayno Hall. We'll provide the electricity and the heat, all the janitorial services. Teach us English. And the Gloucester School Superintendent and a teacher from Gloucester and Alice Sherman, who was the beloved teacher from Lanesville, say, we will teach you English. And they do it at night, after all the day's work is done. And that first night in Wayno Hall, there were 200 Finns that come in to learn English. Now, they were divided into two groups because of 2 floors, and they would switch between those. One group were given selectively index cards with a stanza from William Wordsworth Longfellow's The Village Blacksmith. So I would get my card and stand and go through it and sit down, and Frank would get up and struggle and sit down. I would keep the card in my pocket to bring it and think about it. So it became speaking the language out loud as a group. They would switch, and the second group was learning how to write English. They averaged about 120 people a night, from what I can see, every night, for 2 hours. At the end of it, the teachers would stand at the door, and all the students would shake their hands on the way out. This is an amazing event of why the Finns bothered to learn English, in spite of company. And here's the paragraph I want to read it. No, that just talks about coming together. That's good. This is at the beginning, showing Wayno Hall. Many, mostly it was adults. Think now about back to the strike in 1899. The Finns first attracted general attention by their stubborn resistance to the introduction of imported Italian laborers during the celebrated strike. When they first came here, the Finns, it was charged that their coming was a means of deciding a strike against other laborers. These men had resolved to wipe out the occasion offered. Accordingly, when the last strike was ordered in 1899, they resolved to redeem themselves in the eyes of their American, English, Irish, and Scottish fellow laborers, and took upon themselves the brunt of this locally historic conflict, during which the Italians, the New York Italians, were driven thrice from their strongholds in the corners. For instance, the opinion of I gotta tell you, Italian quarry workers, stone carvers, stone cutters. The book on the Italians from New York is, after a day, all they managed to do was to cut 35 holes. Not even to blow a stone, just they cut 35 holes in a day, which was not much to get done. Without their sturdy aid, the strike would not have been won. They are essentially a musical people, and they have a band which has been in existence several years and will compare favorably with the average county band. These people are here to stay and to develop the country. So this is a great book opening of we've done what we needed to do to prove our value through the strike. We put our neck out for everybody and it worked. That's the front part. Because it's 1902 and there's another 30 years to the quarries. And you've got these Boston lawyers sitting in Boston saying, okay, so they did that. Here's what we're going to do. And for the next series of strikes, where the Finns had holes, the Rockport Granite Company enlisted the aids of detective services in New York that said, we'll come with shoulder rifles. Because one man with a shoulder rifle can keep people at bay much more effectively than 10 men with billy clubs. And for the Finns who were embraced by Cape Ann, who, when they were out of work, were given other jobs, there's a big downside as well, in that when the police went into the woods to find the Finns, to arrest them, many of those Finns had already been taken out. They had gone. So in many ways, I think of the incredible celebration of Finnish culture is there is an element of an awareness of grief that people have, and that the music reaches out. That's my feeling. So, with all the Finns, this is a gathering, probably the Rockport Board of Directors. Am I correct in that, Martin? Do you know? You come across this one? I don't know. I think it's the board. Okay? I don't think it's other granite manufacturers, but even if it is, there's not a Finn among them that I can see. And they're still plotting, they're still doing good. And they've started to realize something amazing. They're taking down names. Now, the only thing that you need to know here, I'm going to point out is one line. Let's get something. So this name, William Gary, kept the men down. This man complained about the timekeeper. This man was a leader of the socialists. This man pays no strike. This man did that, so on. These men's names were reported by Finnish detectives in July 1913. So, when you were a foreman, you didn't have to be in a union. And that meant you could sit up there on the bridge. Right. And observe it and look. And this is from the Harvard Baker Library. It's the first instance that I've seen directly of Finn compliance, which I go back to 1892 and say, I don't think that the Finns who told other Finns to come over into Cape Ann knew what the story was. They knew the book story of what was going on. So, the granite industry thins out after World War I. This is now for you about the aside on Plum Cove Beach. 1819 in Boston. The treasurer presented the suggestion that it might be advantage to lay out the Plum Cove pasture and the Griffin lot in bungalow lots, with a view to selling or leasing such lots. It was moved and voted that the treasurer have a plan prepared for such use. By 1919, the Rockport Granite Company had realized something really simple. Fixed cost to do granite was hard. Yeah, I'm done with that 3 o'clock. So granted, it was a tough margin.